The Adeptus Astartes, superhuman warriors genetically engineered to be the ultimate defenders of humanity. These Space Marines, as they are commonly known, are not merely physical specimens of unparalleled might. They are also subjects of intense psychological conditioning. Central to this conditioning is the Codex Astartes, a tome of military organization and strategy that has, over millennia, transformed into something far more insidious. This comprehensive guide, penned by the Primarch Robut Guilliman, was initially intended to prevent another Horus heresy. However, its influence has grown to encompass every aspect of a Space Marine's existence, effectively reshaping their minds and souls. The Codex Astartes operates on multiple levels, each designed to reinforce loyalty and obedience. On the surface, it provides tactical doctrines and organizational structures. Beneath this veneer of military pragmatism lies a complex system of indoctrination that permeates every fiber of a Space Marine's being. From the moment a young aspirant is selected to join the ranks of the Adeptus Astartes, the Codex begins its work. The neophyte's mind, already malleable due to extensive hypno-indoctrination and chemical treatments, is further shaped by the unyielding tenets of this sacred text. Each chapter of the Codex is not merely read, but absorbed through a combination of rote memorization, battle simulations, and psycho-conditioned responses. The impact of this indoctrination extends far beyond simple battlefield tactics. Space Marines find their very thought processes altered, their decision-making capabilities rewired to align with the Codex's teachings. Creativity and individual initiative, while not entirely suppressed, are channeled into narrow pathways deemed acceptable by the strictures of Guilliman's work. This mental restructuring is reinforced by the chapter's chaplains, warrior priests whose sole purpose is to maintain the spiritual purity and mental resilience of their battle brothers. Through fiery sermons and one-on-one counseling sessions, chaplains ensure that any doubts or deviations from the Codex are swiftly addressed and corrected. The psychological impact of the Codex Astartes is further amplified by the bioengineered nature of Space Marines themselves. Their enhanced physiology, designed for peak combat performance, also makes them more susceptible to certain forms of conditioning. The same traits that allow them to process information at superhuman speeds and recall tactical data with perfect clarity also make them vulnerable to the deep-seated programming of the Codex. Interestingly, the effectiveness of this indoctrination varies between different Space Marine chapters. Some, like the Ultramarines, adhere to the Codex with near-fanatical devotion, while others, such as the Space Wolves, maintain a degree of independence from its more stringent requirements. This variance provides a fascinating glimpse into the complex interplay between genetic predisposition, cultural influence, and psychological conditioning within the Adeptus Astartes. As we delve deeper into the mechanisms by which the Codex Astartes shapes the minds of Space Marines, we must consider the broader implications for the Imperium of Man. This system of indoctrination, while ensuring loyalty and combat effectiveness, also raises questions about the nature of free will and the price of human evolution in a hostile universe. The following sections will explore the multifaceted ways in which the Codex Astartes functions as a tool of mental conditioning, examining its historical context, psychological techniques, and the profound impact it has on both individual Space Marines and the Imperium as a whole. The Codex Astartes emerged from the ashes of the Horus heresy, a cataclysmic civil war that nearly tore the Imperium asunder. Its architect, Primarch Robut Guilliman, witnessed firsthand the devastation wrought by the betrayal of his brother Horus. This traumatic experience shaped Guilliman's vision for a more resilient and incorruptible Space Marine force. In the aftermath of the heresy, the Imperium lay in ruins, its defenses shattered and its people demoralized. Guilliman, ever the strategist, recognized that rebuilding would require more than just military might. The Adeptus Astartes needed a unifying doctrine, a set of principles that would safeguard them against future corruption. Thus, the Codex Astartes was born, its pages filled with tactical wisdom and organizational mandates. Yet, beneath the surface of military strategy lay a far more profound purpose: to reshape the very psyche of the Space Marines. Guilliman, drawing upon his vast knowledge of human psychology and transhuman physiology, crafted a document that would serve as both guidebook and mental safeguard. The initial implementation of the Codex was met with resistance. Many chapters, particularly those with strong cultural identities, viewed it as an infringement on their autonomy. The Space Wolves, led by their fiercely independent Primarch Leman Russ, openly defied the Codex's strictures. This period of tension, known as the Second Founding, ultimately resulted in a compromise. Chapters would adhere to the Codex's organizational structure, but retain some degree of cultural independence. As centuries passed, the Codex Astartes evolved from a mere tactical manual into a quasi-religious text. Its words, once simply advice from a brilliant strategist, became imbued with an almost mystical significance. Chapter masters and chaplains began to interpret the Codex not just as a guide to warfare, but as a path to spiritual purity and mental fortitude. The psychological impact of the Codex became increasingly apparent as generations of Space Marines were indoctrinated in its teachings. The document's emphasis on discipline, hierarchy, and unwavering loyalty served to create warriors who were not only physically superior, but mentally conditioned to resist corruption and maintain absolute faith in the Emperor and the Imperium. One of the most insidious aspects of the Codex's influence is its ability to adapt to different chapter cultures while still maintaining its core principles. For instance, the Ultramarines interpret the Codex literally, viewing it as the ultimate authority on all matters. In contrast, the Raven Guard, while respecting the Codex, adapt its teachings to suit their preference for stealth and subterfuge. This flexibility ensures that even chapters with divergent tactics and traditions still internalize the fundamental psychological conditioning embedded within the Codex. The document's impact extends beyond individual Space Marines, shaping the very structure of Astartes society. The rigid hierarchy and specialization outlined in the Codex create a system where each warrior has a clearly defined role and purpose. This structure minimizes internal conflict and maximizes efficiency, but it also serves to limit independent thinking and reinforce the chain of command. As the millennia wore on, the Codex Astartes became intertwined with the legend of the Emperor himself. Many chapters began to view adherence to the Codex as a form of worship, equating devotion to its principles with loyalty to the master of mankind. This conflation of military doctrine with religious dogma further entrenched the Codex's psychological hold over the Adeptus Astartes. The Codex's influence is not limited to active Space Marines. Even in death, its principles guide the actions of the fallen. Dreadnoughts, ancient warriors entombed in massive war machines, continue to recite passages from the Codex, their millennia-old memories forever shaped by its teachings. This perpetual reinforcement ensures that the wisdom and the conditioning of the Codex is passed down through countless generations of Space Marines. One of the most controversial aspects of the Codex's history is its role in the fragmentation of the original Space Marine legions. By limiting the size of chapters to 1,000 warriors, Guilliman sought to prevent any single military leader from amassing the kind of power that allowed Horus to launch his rebellion. This decision, while tactically sound, had profound psychological implications, fostering a sense of isolation and specialization among the chapters that further reinforced their dependence on the Codex's guidance. The document's evolution over time reflects the changing nature of warfare in the 41st millennium. Subsequent chapter masters and scholars have added their own annotations and interpretations, creating a living document that continues to shape Space Marine tactics and psychology. These additions, always made with reverence to Guilliman's original vision, serve to reinforce the Codex's authority and adaptability. Perhaps one of the most fascinating aspects of the Codex Astartes is its ability to create a shared identity among Space Marines from vastly different chapters. A salamander and a white scar, despite their cultural differences, can find common ground in their reverence for the Codex. This shared foundation facilitates cooperation between chapters and reinforces the idea of the Adeptus Astartes as a unified force in service to the Emperor. The psychological conditioning embedded in the Codex extends to how Space Marines perceive their own transhuman nature. By emphasizing duty, sacrifice, and the eternal struggle against the enemies of mankind, the Codex helps Astartes reconcile their superhuman abilities with their role as protectors of humanity. This aspect of the conditioning is crucial in preventing Space Marines from viewing themselves as superior beings destined to rule rather than serve. In recent years, the return of Robert Guilliman himself has added a new dimension to the Codex's influence. The Primarch's resurrection has forced many chapters to re-evaluate their interpretation of his work. Some view his return as a vindication of their strict adherence to the Codex, while others hope for new insights or modifications to the ancient text. This tension between tradition and potential change highlights the deep-seated psychological impact the Codex has had on the Adeptus Astartes over millennia. The Codex Astartes stands as a monumental work of military doctrine, its pages brimming with tactical wisdom and organizational mandates. Yet, beneath this facade of strategic guidance lies a sophisticated system of psychological conditioning. This section delves into the unique characteristics and features that transform the Codex from a mere manual into a powerful tool for shaping the minds of Space Marines. At its core, the Codex employs a multi-layered approach to indoctrination. The outermost layer consists of explicit military doctrine, providing clear instructions on battlefield tactics, squad formations, and weapon configurations. This practical knowledge serves as a gateway, drawing Space Marines into the deeper, more subtle layers of psychological manipulation. Beneath the tactical guidance lies a stratum of philosophical tenets. These principles, woven seamlessly into the tactical discourse, instill a sense of purpose and moral certainty. Space Marines are not merely taught how to fight. They are imbued with the conviction that their cause is just and their methods are beyond reproach. This moral framework becomes the lens through which Astartes view the galaxy, shaping their perceptions and decision-making processes. One of the Codex's most potent features is its use of repetitive mantras and axioms. These concise, memorable phrases are designed to be easily recalled in the heat of battle. Over time, these mantras become deeply ingrained in the Space Marine's psyche, serving as mental anchors that reinforce their conditioning. For example, the phrase, "Knowledge is power, guard it well," becomes more than a simple adage. It transforms into a fundamental truth that shapes how Astartes approach information and secrecy. The Codex's language is carefully crafted to exploit the enhanced cognitive abilities of Space Marines. Complex battle scenarios are described in vivid, sensory-rich detail, leveraging the Astartes' eidetic memory. This approach ensures that tactical lessons are not merely learned but experienced, creating a form of mental muscle memory that can be instinctively accessed in combat situations. Interwoven with tactical instructions are historical anecdotes and exemplars of heroic deeds. These narratives serve multiple purposes. They provide context for tactical decisions, inspire emulation of virtuous behavior, and reinforce the Space Marine's sense of legacy and duty. By connecting present actions to a glorious past, the Codex creates a psychological continuity that strengthens the Astartes' resolve and sense of purpose. A unique feature of the Codex is its adaptability. While its core principles remain constant, the document allows for interpretation and application across diverse chapter cultures. This flexibility ensures that even chapters with divergent traditions can find relevance in its pages, thereby extending its psychological influence across the entire Adeptus Astartes. The Codex employs a system of graduated revelation, with certain sections accessible only to Space Marines of specific ranks or roles. This hierarchical structure serves two purposes. It creates a sense of progression and achievement as Astartes ascend the ranks, and it compartmentalizes knowledge, ensuring that each warrior understands precisely what is necessary for their role and nothing more. This controlled dissemination of information reinforces the chain of command and limits potential for independent thought or dissent. One of the most insidious aspects of the Codex is its self-reinforcing nature. As Space Marines achieve victories by following its precepts, their faith in the document grows stronger. This positive feedback loop creates a form of cognitive bias, where success is attributed to adherence to the Codex, while failures are seen as a result of deviating from its wisdom. Over time, this pattern of thinking becomes so ingrained that questioning the Codex becomes almost unthinkable. The document's influence extends beyond combat doctrine to encompass all aspects of a Space Marine's life. It prescribes routines for training, meditation, and even sleep cycles. This total lifestyle management ensures that every moment of an Astartes' existence is shaped by the Codex's principles, leaving little room for divergent thoughts or behaviors. A subtle yet powerful feature of the Codex is its use of symbolic imagery. The document is replete with heraldic symbols, geometric patterns, and iconic representations of Space Marine armor and weaponry. These visual elements tap into the Astartes' enhanced visual cortex, creating powerful mental associations that reinforce the Codex's teachings on a subconscious level. The Codex also leverages the Space Marine's transhuman physiology to enhance its psychological impact. It prescribes specific breathing exercises and physical postures to be adopted when studying its pages. These practices, seemingly mundane, actually trigger neurochemical responses in the Astartes' enhanced biology, heightening focus and receptivity to the Codex's teachings. One of the most controversial aspects of the Codex is its approach to failure and doubt. Rather than acknowledging these as natural human experiences, the document frames them as weaknesses to be purged. This creates a psychological environment where Space Marines are reluctant to admit uncertainty or error, instead doubling down on their adherence to the Codex's principles, even in the face of contradictory evidence. The document's treatment of the Emperor and the Primarchs is particularly noteworthy. While never explicitly claiming divinity for these figures, the Codex elevates them to a status of unquestionable authority. This careful balancing act allows the Codex to tap into religious fervor without crossing the line into outright worship, a nuance that becomes crucial in maintaining the Space Marines' role as defenders of the Imperial truth. A unique feature of the Codex is its incorporation of psycho-conditioning triggers. Certain passages, when read aloud, are designed to induce specific mental states in Space Marines. These can range from heightened alertness to a berserker-like battle fury. This direct manipulation of mental states blurs the line between tactical instruction and psychological programming. The Codex's approach to enemy forces is another tool for psychological conditioning. Xenos races and chaos entities are consistently portrayed in terms that evoke revulsion and righteous anger. This demonization of the enemy serves to both motivate Space Marines in battle and to reinforce their sense of moral superiority, further cementing their loyalty to the Imperium. Perhaps one of the most subtle yet effective features of the Codex is its use of linguistic structures that mirror the High Gothic used in Imperial religious texts. This creates a subconscious association between the Codex's teachings and divine mandate, elevating its status from mere military doctrine to something approaching holy rite. In conclusion, the Codex Astartes is a masterwork of psychological engineering, its every feature carefully designed to shape the minds of Space Marines. From its layered approach to indoctrination to its exploitation of transhuman physiology, the Codex stands as a testament to the lengths to which the Imperium will go to ensure the loyalty and effectiveness of its greatest defenders. As we delve deeper into its impact on the Adeptus Astartes and the broader Imperium, we begin to understand the true power of this remarkable document. At its most fundamental level, the Codex Astartes serves as the primary organizational framework for the majority of Space Marine chapters. Its prescribed structure of 10 companies, each with specific roles and compositions, has shaped the face of Imperial warfare for millennia. This standardization allows for unprecedented coordination between different chapters, enabling them to form cohesive fighting forces despite their diverse origins and cultures. The Codex's influence on military strategy reverberates throughout the Imperium. Even non-Astartes forces, from the Imperial Guard to the Adeptus Mechanicus, study and adapt its principles. The document's emphasis on combined arms tactics, strategic flexibility, and adaptive warfare has elevated it to near-mythical status among Imperial military theorists. Beyond the battlefield, the Codex Astartes plays a crucial role in maintaining the political balance of the Imperium. By limiting the size of Space Marine chapters to 1,000 battle brothers, it prevents the concentration of too much power in the hands of any single chapter master. This safeguard, born from the lessons of the Horus Heresy, has helped preserve the stability of the Imperium for 10,000 years. The Codex's impact on Imperial culture cannot be overstated. Its teachings have seeped into the collective consciousness of humanity, shaping perceptions of heroism, duty, and sacrifice. Across countless worlds, children grow up hearing tales of Space Marines embodying the Codex virtues, inspiring generations to strive for greatness in service to the Emperor. In the realm of Imperial politics, adherence to the Codex often serves as a litmus test for a chapter's loyalty. Those who follow its tenets closely, like the Ultramarines, are generally viewed with less suspicion by Imperial authorities. Conversely, chapters that deviate significantly from the Codex, such as the Space Wolves or the Black Templars, often find themselves under greater scrutiny, despite their undeniable service to the Imperium. The Codex Astartes has also played a pivotal role in the evolution of Space Marine warfare. Its living nature, with additions and annotations made over millennia, allows it to adapt to new threats and technologies. This adaptability ensures that Space Marines remain at the cutting edge of Imperial military might, capable of facing everything from Tyranid swarms to Necron dynasties. One of the more subtle yet profound influences of the Codex is its impact on the psyche of individual Space Marines. The document's teachings on honor, duty, and brotherhood shape the very identity of Astartes warriors. This psychological conditioning creates a shared culture that transcends chapter boundaries, fostering a sense of unity among the disparate forces of the Adeptus Astartes. The Codex's role in the spiritual life of Space Marines is particularly noteworthy. While not a religious text in the traditional sense, its precepts are often treated with a reverence bordering on the devotional. Many chapters incorporate study of the Codex into their daily rituals, blurring the line between military doctrine and spiritual practice. In times of crisis, the Codex Astartes serves as a rallying point for the forces of the Imperium. Its time-tested strategies provide a sense of certainty in an uncertain galaxy, bolstering morale and providing clear direction in the face of overwhelming odds. This psychological anchor has proven invaluable in countless campaigns against the enemies of mankind. The document's influence extends even to the Imperium's adversaries. Many Xenos races and Chaos warbands have learned to anticipate and counter Codex-approved tactics, leading to an ongoing evolution of strategy and counter-strategy. This dynamic has shaped the nature of warfare in the 41st millennium, driving innovation on all sides of the conflict. Within the Adeptus Mechanicus, the Codex Astartes is studied with the same fervor as any ancient STC. Tech priests analyze its precepts, seeking to understand the machine-like efficiency it imparts to Space Marine forces. This scrutiny has led to advancements in everything from power armor design to starship tactics. The Codex's role in shaping the Imperium's response to new threats cannot be overstated. When faced with emergent dangers like the Tyranid hive fleets or the awakening Necron tomb worlds, it is to the Codex that Imperial strategists turn. Its flexible principles provide a framework for adapting to these unprecedented challenges, ensuring the Imperium's survival in an ever-hostile galaxy. In the realm of Imperial governance, the Codex Astartes plays a surprising role. Its organizational principles have been adopted by various Imperial institutions, from the structure of planetary defense forces to the management of vast hive cities. This influence speaks to the document's effectiveness not just as a military treatise, but as a comprehensive guide to efficient hierarchical organization. The Codex's impact on Space Marine recruitment and training is profound. Its rigorous standards for aspirants have shaped the genetic legacy of the Adeptus Astartes, ensuring that only the most worthy candidates ascend to the ranks of the transhuman warriors. This selective process has maintained the Space Marine's superiority over countless generations. In the wake of the Great Rift and the return of Robut Guilliman, the Codex Astartes has taken on new significance. The Primarch's revisions and reinterpretations have breathed new life into the ancient text, adapting it to the dire realities of a divided Imperium. This evolution demonstrates the document's enduring relevance in the face of unprecedented challenges. The Codex's influence can even be seen in the structure of Space Marine fleets and void warfare tactics. Its principles of rapid strike and overwhelming force have shaped the design of everything from Thunderhawk gunships to battle barges, ensuring that the Adeptus Astartes maintain space superiority in their countless campaigns. Perhaps one of the most controversial aspects of the Codex's influence is its role in determining the fate of non-compliant chapters. Those who stray too far from its tenets risk censure or even excommunication, as seen in the cases of the Soul Drinkers and the Astral Claws. This punitive aspect underscores the document's position as a tool of control as much as a guide to warfare. The Codex Astartes, far from being a mere military manual, represents a calculated effort by the Imperium to ensure the unwavering loyalty and effectiveness of its most potent warriors. This deep analysis explores the underlying motivations and far-reaching consequences of this psychological conditioning tool. At its core, the Imperium's implementation of the Codex stems from a profound fear of betrayal. The scars of the Horus heresy run deep, and the specter of transhuman warriors turning against humanity haunts the corridors of power. By instilling a rigid code of conduct and thought, the Imperium seeks to create a bulwark against corruption, both external and internal. The architects of this system, primarily Robut Guilliman, recognize the double-edged nature of the Astartes. These genetically enhanced super soldiers, while humanity's greatest defenders, also pose its greatest potential threat. The Codex serves as a psychological leash, channeling the Space Marine's immense power towards the Imperium's ends, while minimizing the risk of independent thought leading to rebellion. One of the most insidious aspects of the Codex's conditioning is its exploitation of the Space Marine's innate need for purpose. By providing a comprehensive worldview and moral framework, it fills the psychological void that might otherwise lead to questioning or doubt. This manufactured sense of certainty becomes a powerful tool for maintaining control over beings that could otherwise prove ungovernable. The Imperium's approach to the Codex reveals a deeply rooted paranoia within its power structures. By standardizing Space Marine tactics and organization, it creates a system where deviation becomes immediately apparent. This allows for early detection of potential heresy, enabling swift response to any signs of disloyalty. Paradoxically, the rigid structure imposed by the Codex also serves to enhance the Space Marine's combat effectiveness. By eliminating variables in organization and basic tactics, it allows for seamless cooperation between different chapters. This standardization proves crucial in a galaxy-spanning empire where coordinated defense often requires the integration of forces from distant and diverse origins. The psychological conditioning embedded in the Codex also serves a broader imperial agenda of maintaining humanity's dominance. By instilling an unshakable belief in human superiority, it ensures that Space Marines remain detached from the Xenos races they encounter, viewing them solely as threats to be eliminated rather than potential allies or subjects for empathy. From a governance perspective, the Codex's role in limiting the size of Space Marine chapters reveals the Imperium's fear of concentrated power. This artificial constraint on Astartes' numbers serves as a safeguard against any single military leader amassing enough strength to challenge Imperial authority, a direct response to the events that led to the Horus Heresy. The Imperium's insistence on Codex adherence also functions as a tool for political control. Chapters that closely follow the Codex are generally viewed more favorably, receiving better support and less scrutiny. This creates a system of rewards and punishments that further reinforces compliance, subtly coercing even the most independent-minded chapters to fall in line. One of the more subtle aspects of the Codex's implementation is its role in managing the transhuman psychology of the Astartes. Space Marines, with their enhanced abilities and extended lifespans, risk becoming detached from the very humanity they are sworn to protect. The Codex's emphasis on duty and sacrifice serves to anchor them, preventing a drift towards perceiving themselves as fundamentally separate or superior to baseline humans. The Imperium's use of the Codex as a pseudo-religious text reveals a calculated approach to faith and devotion. By blurring the lines between military doctrine and spiritual truth, it creates a system where obedience to tactical directives becomes synonymous with moral righteousness. This conflation of military and moral authority serves to further cement the Space Marines' loyalty. From a broader perspective, the Codex's role in shaping Astartes' psychology can be seen as part of the Imperium's larger strategy of control through indoctrination. Similar methods are employed across Imperial society, from the dogma of the ecclesiarchy to the doctrines of the Adeptus Mechanicus. The Space Marines, in this light, represent the pinnacle of this approach to maintaining order in a vast and fragmented empire. The Imperium's reliance on the Codex also speaks to a fundamental lack of trust in individual judgment. By providing pre-approved responses to a wide array of situations, it seeks to eliminate the unpredictability of personal decision-making. This reflects a broader Imperial philosophy that values consistency and obedience over innovation and adaptability. One of the more controversial aspects of the Codex's implementation is its role in suppressing Space Marine individuality. While chapters maintain surface-level cultural differences, the core thinking patterns instilled by the Codex create an underlying uniformity. This homogenization of transhuman minds represents a significant loss of potential diversity and creativity, sacrificed on the altar of control and predictability. The Imperium's approach to the Codex also reveals a deep-seated fear of chaos, both literal and metaphorical. The rigid structure and clear hierarchies prescribed by the document stand in stark contrast to the fluid, ever-changing nature of the warp and its denizens. In this light, the Codex can be seen as a psychological bulwark against the very concept of chaos, an attempt to impose order on a fundamentally disordered universe. From a strategic standpoint, the Imperium's use of the Codex demonstrates a long-term approach to warfare. By creating a standardized system of tactics and responses, it allows for the accumulation and application of military wisdom across millennia. This institutional memory serves as a counter to the vast experience of ancient enemies like the Eldar or the tactical adaptability of the Tyranid hive mind. The psychological conditioning imposed by the Codex also serves to manage the immense trauma experienced by Space Marines in their endless wars. By providing a rigid framework of meaning and purpose, it helps prevent psychological breakdown in the face of horrors that would shatter the minds of ordinary humans. This resilience, while necessary for the Imperium's survival, comes at the cost of the Astartes' ability to process and heal from their experiences in healthy ways. One of the more subtle consequences of the Codex's influence is its impact on Space Marine creativity. While it allows for tactical flexibility within its framework, it discourages radical departures from established norms. This constraint on innovative thinking while ensuring predictability may ultimately hamper the Astartes' ability to adapt to unprecedented threats. The Imperium's insistence on Codex adherence also reflects a broader attitude towards knowledge and innovation. In a society that venerates ancient wisdom and distrusts novelty, the Codex stands as a testament to the power of tradition. This backwards-looking approach, while providing stability, may ultimately prove maladaptive in a galaxy of ever-evolving threats. One of the lesser-known facts about the Codex Astartes is its sheer size. The original manuscript, penned by Robert Guilliman himself, is said to span over 100 volumes. Each volume is bound in adamantium and inscribed with letters of gold, making the complete set a logistical challenge to transport. As a result, most chapters possess only fragments or abridged versions, leading to diverse interpretations across the Imperium. The Codex contains several lesser-known combat formations that have become the stuff of legend. One such formation is the Hammer of Wrath, a devastating drop-pod assault tactic. According to chapter legends, this maneuver was once used to obliterate an entire Orc in a single coordinated strike, with hundreds of drop pods landing simultaneously to create a shockwave that shattered the Orc lines. Interestingly, the Codex Astartes includes sections on Xenos biology and psychology. These passages, often overlooked in favor of combat doctrine, provide invaluable insights into the enemies of mankind. One particularly fascinating chapter details the proper etiquette for negotiating with Eldar Farseers should such an unlikely scenario arise. This inclusion hints at Guilliman's foresight in preparing for all possible contingencies. The psychological impact of the Codex is starkly illustrated in the tale of Brother Argus of the Ultramarines. During a grueling campaign against Tyrannid forces, Argus found himself cut off from his squad and surrounded by Genestealers. In his final Vox transmission, instead of calling for help or saying farewell, he recited word for word a passage from the Codex on maintaining unit cohesion. This story is often cited as an example of how deeply ingrained the Codex's teachings become. One of the more controversial aspects of the Codex is its stance on psychers within Space Marine ranks. While it acknowledges their utility, it also prescribes strict controls and limitations on their powers. This has led to varying practices among chapters, with some like the Black Templars shunning psychers entirely, while others like the Blood Ravens embrace their psychic potential more openly. The Codex Astartes contains an entire volume dedicated to the art of insurgency and counterinsurgency warfare. This section, rarely discussed openly, provides detailed instructions on how to overthrow planetary governments and quell rebellions. Its inclusion speaks to the complex role Space Marines play in maintaining Imperial control, sometimes acting as liberators, other times as oppressors. One of the most intriguing stories surrounding the Codex involves the lost Omega Vault of the Death Watch. Rumored to contain Guilliman's personal annotations and tactical insights deemed too dangerous for general distribution, this vault is said to open only in times of direst need. The few Space Marines who claim to have glimpsed its contents speak of tactical doctrines that border on heretical in their deviation from standard Codex teachings. The Codex's influence extends even to Space Marine leisure activities. It prescribes specific forms of recreation designed to hone combat skills and reinforce unit cohesion. One such activity is the game of Regicide, a chess-like strategy game that the Codex elevates to an art form. Tournaments between chapters are not uncommon, with the outcomes sometimes influencing inter-chapter relations. Perhaps one of the most surprising facts about the Codex Astartes is its inclusion of diplomatic protocols. While Space Marines are primarily instruments of war, the Codex recognizes situations where negotiation might be preferable to combat. These protocols have been used to forge alliances with human worlds on the fringes of the Imperium, and have even guided interactions with more amenable Xenos races in times of greater threats. The psychological conditioning imposed by the Codex has led to some unexpected outcomes. There are accounts of Space Marines experiencing a form of combat paralysis when faced with situations not explicitly covered by the Codex. This phenomenon, known as Guilliman's dilemma, has been the subject of much study by chapter apothecaries and librarians seeking to understand the limits of Codex indoctrination. One of the more enigmatic sections of the Codex deals with the concept of theoretical and practical thinking. This dual approach to problem solving has become so ingrained in some chapters that it influences every aspect of their existence. The Ultramarines, in particular, are known to apply this methodology to everything from battlefield tactics to fortress maintenance, creating a unique culture of constant analysis and adaptation. The Codex Astartes has spawned numerous subtexts and commentaries over the millennia. One of the most famous is the Apocrypha of Scaros, a collection of tactical annotations by a mysterious space marine strategist. This text, while not officially recognized, has gained a cult following among certain chapters for its unorthodox yet effective combat doctrines. Interestingly, the Codex contains passages that seem to anticipate its own potential for misuse. Guilliman included warnings against blind adherence and emphasized the importance of adaptability. These sections are often cited by chapters seeking to justify deviations from standard Codex doctrine, leading to ongoing debates about the true intent behind these enigmatic passages. The impact of the Codex on space marine psychology is perhaps best illustrated by the phenomenon known as Guilliman's gaze. This refers to the tendency of Codex-compliant Marines to unconsciously seek tactical advantages in every environment, even in non-combat situations. Witnesses describe seeing Space Marines enter a room and immediately identify defensive positions, exit routes, and potential weapons, all without conscious thought. One of the more curious aspects of the Codex is its section on Space Marine names. It provides guidelines for naming conventions that balance individuality with unit cohesion. This has led to the development of unique naming cultures within different chapters, from the descriptive titles of the Salamanders to the ancient Terran names favored by the Ultramarines. The Codex's influence extends even to the design of space marine fortresses. It provides detailed architectural specifications that balance defensive capabilities with symbolic representations of Astartes' virtues. The famous Fortress of Hera on Macragge is considered the pinnacle of Codex-compliant fortress design, its every angle and dimension imbued with tactical and philosophical significance. Perhaps one of the most impactful yet least discussed aspects of the Codex is its role in shaping space marine relationships with mortal humans. It prescribes a delicate balance of aloofness and protection, designed to inspire awe while maintaining a connection to humanity. This complex dynamic has led to fascinating cultural developments on Astartes' home worlds, where mortals often develop elaborate rituals and customs centered around their transhuman protectors. The Codex Astartes is far more than a simple military manual. It is a living document that continues to shape the culture, psychology, and destiny of the Adeptus Astartes in myriad fascinating ways. From its impact on leisure activities to its influence on architecture, the Codex reach extends into every aspect of space marine existence, creating a rich tapestry of traditions, quirks, and mysteries that continue to captivate scholars of the 41st millennium. As we draw this exploration to a close, it becomes evident that the Codex Astartes stands as a monumental work of military doctrine and psychological engineering. Its impact on the Adeptus Astartes and the broader Imperium of man is profound and multifaceted, deserving of careful analysis and consideration. At its core, the Codex Astartes functions as a sophisticated tool for mental conditioning. It shapes the very thought processes of space marines, instilling a rigid framework of beliefs and behaviors that persist across millennia. This psychological sculpting begins from the moment an aspirant is inducted into a chapter and continues throughout their service, creating warriors who are as much products of the Codex as they are of their genetic enhancements. The document's approach to indoctrination is remarkably holistic. It doesn't merely dictate battlefield tactics. It prescribes a complete worldview. From strategic thinking to moral philosophy, the Codex leaves no aspect of a space marine's psyche untouched. This comprehensive approach ensures that Astartes warriors remain loyal and effective instruments of imperial will, even in the face of unimaginable horrors and temptations. One of the most striking aspects of the Codex's influence is its ability to create a shared culture among diverse chapters. Despite vast differences in homeworlds, traditions, and even genetic lineage, Codex-compliant Space Marines share a common mental framework. This shared mindset facilitates cooperation between chapters and reinforces the idea of the Adeptus Astartes as a unified force serving humanity. However, this uniformity comes at a cost. The rigid adherence to Codex doctrine can stifle creativity and adaptability. In a galaxy of ever-evolving threats, from the insidious corruptions of chaos to the relentless advance of tyrannid hive fleets, this inflexibility could prove dangerous. Some critics argue that the Codex, in its quest for standardization, may be hampering the Adeptus Astartes' ability to respond to unprecedented challenges. The psychological impact of the Codex extends beyond individual Space Marines to shape the very structure of Astartes society. Its prescriptions on chapter organization, from the company level down to squad compositions, create a rigid hierarchy that reinforces its mental conditioning. This structure becomes a physical manifestation of the Codex's teachings, surrounding Space Marines with constant reminders of their place within the Imperial war machine. One of the more insidious aspects of the Codex's influence is its role in shaping Space Marine perceptions of the broader Imperium. By emphasizing the Astartes' role as humanity's protectors, it creates a sense of detachment from the very people they serve. This separation, while perhaps necessary for beings as potent as Space Marines, raises questions about the long-term consequences of creating a warrior elite so removed from human concerns. The Codex's approach to enemy forces deserves particular scrutiny. Its portrayal of Xenos races and Chaos entities as unequivocally evil and deserving of extermination shapes Space Marine interactions with non-imperial forces. While this black-and-white worldview may be necessary in many combat situations, it potentially limits diplomatic options and perpetuates a cycle of endless war. Interestingly, the Codex's influence varies between chapters, providing a natural experiment in its effectiveness. Ultramarines, with their strict adherence, stand in stark contrast to more independent chapters like the Space Wolves. Comparing the combat effectiveness and psychological resilience of these different approaches could yield valuable insights into the true impact of Codex indoctrination. The document's role in maintaining Space Marine loyalty cannot be overstated. In the aftermath of the Horus heresy, the threat of transhuman warriors turning against the Imperium loomed large. The Codex's psychological conditioning serves as a bulwark against such betrayals, instilling a deep-seated loyalty that goes beyond mere obedience to commands. However, this raises ethical questions about the nature of free will among the Adeptus Astartes. One of the more subtle aspects of the Codex's influence is its impact on Space Marine creativity. While it allows for tactical flexibility within its framework, it discourages radical departures from established norms. This constraint on innovative thinking, while ensuring predictability, may ultimately hamper the Astartes' ability to adapt to unprecedented threats. The balance between adherence to proven methods and the need for innovation remains a point of tension within many chapters. The Codex's role in shaping Space Marine perceptions of time and history is particularly fascinating. By emphasizing the legacy of the Primarchs and the lessons of past campaigns, it creates a mindset where past, present, and future blur together. This eternal perspective helps Space Marines contextualize their actions within the grand narrative of Imperial history, but it may also hinder their ability to fully engage with the present moment. The document's influence extends even to the physical architecture of Space Marine fortress monasteries. These structures, designed according to Codex specifications, serve as physical manifestations of its teachings. The layout of training grounds, the positioning of shrines, and the organization of armories all reinforce the mental conditioning of the Astartes who dwell within. This integration of psychological principles into physical space demonstrates the all-encompassing nature of the Codex's influence. One of the more controversial aspects of the Codex is its approach to individuality among Space Marines. While it allows for personal names and some degree of individual distinction, it ultimately emphasizes the primacy of the chapter over the individual. This sublimation of personal identity to the greater whole is a key aspect of Space Marine psychology, but it raises questions about the human cost of creating such singularly focused warriors. The Codex's treatment of psychers within Space Marine ranks reveals much about its approach to potential sources of instability. By prescribing strict controls and limitations on psychic powers, it seeks to harness this valuable resource while minimizing the risks of corruption or loss of control. This cautious approach reflects a broader Imperial philosophy of containment and control when dealing with potentially dangerous assets. Interestingly, the Codex influence has spread beyond the Adeptus Astartes, shaping Imperial military doctrine as a whole. Many of its principles have been adopted in modified form by the Astra Militarum and even civilian defense forces. This broader impact demonstrates the document's enduring relevance and the respect it commands across Imperial institutions. The psychological resilience instilled by the Codex is perhaps its most valuable contribution to Space Marine effectiveness. By providing a rigid framework of meaning and purpose, it allows Astartes to withstand mental pressures that would shatter ordinary human minds. From the horrors of warp travel to the mind-bending realities of combat against Chaos forces, this psychological fortitude has proven crucial to the Imperium's survival. However, this resilience comes at a cost. The same mental conditioning that allows Space Marines to face unimaginable horrors also limits their ability to process and heal from trauma in healthy ways. The long-term psychological consequences of this approach, particularly for veterans of centuries of warfare, remain a subject of concern for chapter apothecaries and librarians. The Codex's role in shaping Space Marine relationships with mortal humans is particularly complex. It prescribes a careful balance of aloofness and protection designed to inspire awe while maintaining a connection to humanity. This dynamic has led to fascinating cultural developments on Astartes' home worlds, where mortals often develop elaborate rituals and customs centered around their transhuman protectors. However, it also serves to further separate Space Marines from the very people they are sworn to defend. In conclusion, the Codex Astartes stands as a testament to the lengths to which the Imperium will go to ensure the loyalty and effectiveness of its greatest defenders. Its comprehensive approach to psychological conditioning has created warriors of unparalleled skill and devotion. However, this achievement raises profound questions about the nature of humanity, free will, and the cost of survival in the grim darkness of the far future. As the Imperium faces ever-growing threats, from the resurgent forces of chaos to the awakening Necron dynasties, the role of the Codex Astartes will undoubtedly continue to evolve. Whether it will prove to be the salvation of humanity or a constraint that hampers its defenders remains to be seen. What is certain is that the Codex will continue to shape the minds and actions of the Adeptus Astartes, for better or worse, in the millennia to come.